not sure if any of you watch or listen to Moody Radio, but for years I have listened to Chris Fabry as I would drive home from school, or if I was waiting in the car at a football practice or soccer practice when Carter was in high school. And so this past week, I have been doing a lot of painting on a little rental house. And so I've listened to Moody Radio just about continuously for a week. And Chris Fabry had a show on, this was his topic, maybe last Friday. And I just keep thinking about it and I wanted to share it with you all. It's kind of given me a motivation leading up to Thanksgiving. And so I wanted to share it with you all so you would have plenty of time to do this between now and Thanksgiving. You may even want to spread it out and do something each week in regard to and the rest. And so when Chris Fabry started talking about and the rest, I wasn't sure where he was going with it, but he started talking about Gilligan's Island. And the show was first produced, the first season was in 1964. And you'll be surprised, or maybe you remember, I remember the song both ways. And I would have played the recording, but the last time I tried doing that on here, you couldn't hear it. So I don't think it would make a difference. Plus, I wouldn't be able to post it on YouTube because of the music. So for that reason, I have the theme song here if you want to go back and listen to it. But I think you can all sing it in your head. Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip. It started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship. The mate was a mighty sailing lad, the skipper brave and sure. 5 passengers set sail that day for a 3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour. The weather started getting rough. The tiny ship was tossed. If not for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost. The minnow would be lost. The ship set ground on the shore of this uncharted desert isle with Gilligan, the skipper too, the millionaire and his wife, the movie star, and the rest here on Gilligan's Isle. I'm not a singer, so the very first season, the song ended with "and the rest." Well, there's another part of the song, but the following year they changed it from "and the rest" to "the Professor and Mary Ann here on Gilligan's Isle." So that first year they left out the Professor and Mary Ann. So they were the two that were "and the rest." But were they not as important? You know, what was the reason they were left out? And so Chris Fabry tells the story of what happened. And one of the other characters or actors went to the producers and asked that that be changed. They didn't think it was fair. And so they went back and rewrote the song and re-recorded it for the following seasons. But you know, he brought up, were they insignificant? I think mom got kicked out. Okay. Were those characters insignificant in the story? As I recall, they had as much of a role as the movie star and the millionaire. Did they add humor and success to the show? I would think so. You know, they didn't have them in the show the first season and then boot them out. And so even though Gilligan was obviously the main character and most of the storylines revolved around Gilligan and some crazy problem he was having or some situation he'd gotten himself into, the Professor and Mary Ann were still important, and they helped support the success of the show. Each of the characters had their imperfections and their little flaws and their character traits that made them appealing and, you know, made that show a success. So Chris Fabry brought out that we all have these people who are left out in our lives. And he considered them part of and the rest. People who, these are just some things I thought of, people who are part of the story but get little attention. So if you think about your story at work, who's someone who works hard, they really don't get a lot of attention. People who are faithful but get little recognition. People who do the work nobody else wants to do, but they do it faithfully. People who step up when life gets hard. They're the ones that, those nurses in the hospital that when there is a really bad mess, they are the ones that go to the patient and make them feel like, that's just nothing to worry about. People who never complain despite their circumstances. You never hear them say a grumbling word. People who you know or maybe who you don't know, but the job that they do, and God will bring them to your mind. Maybe it's people who volunteer their time without any payment. And so Chris Fabry challenged his listeners to call in and nominate someone. He used the word nominate. And so he had callers from a lady who was a veteran, and she was a single mom. And when she was deployed, her mother stepped up and raised her 2 kids for the years that she was unable to be there for her children. I think of veterans' wives, who stay behind and take care of the family and the home and the children, and sometimes work on top of all that. And they don't get the recognition. You don't have people stopping them in the grocery store, thanking them for their service. And so that was one situation that a caller called in about. Another were people who worked in their church, either in their kitchen, as the people who provide meals for funerals, or, just church dinners, people who run the sound machines and the technical parts of your church. And those aren't paid positions. They are, those people have to be there if they're doing sound and lighting every single Sunday, Wednesday night, Sunday night, funerals. They are so dedicated, and they get no recognition most of the time. So there are many, many people in your life who are just kind of behind the scenes doing the work, and they are part of and the rest. So some of the people I thought of were restaurant servers. I know some people can be so cruel and just, absolutely torment a restaurant server when they are doing their very best. And it seems like they're always short-staffed now and short-handed. And so those people came to my mind. Grandparents in this day and age, so many are raising their grandchildren. And that is such an act of love and dedication, often keeping children out of foster care. The church workers, like I've already mentioned, our trash collectors, which we talked about once before when we did the lesson on You Matter. And I think this is very much a lesson on You Matter. Who can we tell that they do matter and that we do see them? I was reminded of when I was teaching at Betsy Lane, my teaching assistant was this lady here, Vivanna Tackett, and her husband is also named Ernie Tackett. And we worked together. So it was always fun, but she was so dedicated and did so much work for the children. And, they looked to her just like they did me, but she wasn't paid for the amount that she deserved. She didn't get the recognition that she deserved. And so she definitely came to my mind as one of the people in a school that works very hard for very little recognition or pay. A lot of times school secretaries or church secretaries, they're the people who really, hold things together. And here again, they rarely get the pay or the recognition they need. So I want you to think of some of these people in your life that you could, we'll say, nominate. But I'm going to challenge you to make a list of these people, and I'm going to do it in my journal. I'll show you how I'm going to do that in a fun way. Who you think should be nominated for and the rest an award. And then I want you to write them a card, call them, or send a text. And it could say anything you want it to say, but this is just some things that popped in my mind. You could thank them. Thank you. You could say, I see you. I see you Sunday after Sunday, showing up, working behind the scenes, and I just want you to know I'm thankful for you. I notice what you do, and I'm grateful. You know, those are just some ideas that you might work into a thank you note. You make the world a better place. You are noticed and appreciated. I prayed for you today and thanked God for you. And then fill in the blank. What's something else that you might put in a card where you're thanking someone for their service, for their acts of kindness, for their dedication, whatever it may be. And I was reminded of Philippians 1:3-4. I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy. And this is Paul writing to a group of people. So if I were going to use this in my note, and I probably will use this verse because it's one I have committed to memory, and I like it a lot in regard to this. In my prayers for you, I always pray with joy instead of for all of you, because that sounds like a group, and you're only going to be writing this to one person most likely. A couple other verses that I thought you might want to include. We always thank God for all of you, making mention of you constantly in our prayers. But you could personalize this one again. I always thank God for you, making mention of you constantly in my prayers. And then that's 1 Thessalonians 1:2. And then 1 Corinthians 1:4-5. I thank my God always for you because of God's grace that was given to you in Christ Jesus. That is, you were made rich through him in everything, in all your communication and every kind of knowledge. So you could use that first portion, verse 4. I thank my God always for you because of God's grace that was given to you in Christ Jesus. So those are just some ideas of verses you might include in your note. And then my journaling idea is to create like a little banner or a pennant, a string of little pennants that will spell out thankful for and the rest. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to do this turkey. And instead of saying I'm grateful for, on each of those feathers, that's where I'm going to write out who I am going to send a note to or a text or something to that effect. So I just drew out with a pencil the little strings. And then I spelled out thankful for and the rest. And that wouldn't make sense to someone looking in your journal, but it will make sense to you. Just like I didn't understand really where Chris Fabry was going at the beginning. And I kind of want to do my journal with fall colors. So I will probably, I just, I made these like a W. And they had theirs alternating in that picture. Well, I didn't alternate there. I didn't alternate there, but I can go over it with brown and that won't be a problem. This is no stress, remember? Low stress, no stress. I think I'll do all my letters in brown. So this is our little banner. Probably should have done my string first, but I always go back and erase my pencil marks after I do this type of work. And I'll do the same thing over here, but it's going to say and the rest. And so I'm thankful for and the rest, all of those people who are often left out. And then when you create a pumpkin, this is the way I showed my kindergarten students to draw a pumpkin years ago. So Teresa, pay attention. You can show your kids this if you don't already know this trick. First, you make a hot dog wiener shape. And the little kids can always relate to that. Looks like a hot dog. And then you go out on each side and just curve it around to the shape you just made. You do that on each side. And then you can go in the back and add another little hump if you want to, if you want to make it, you know, have dimension in the back. And then you can give it a dried up or a brown or green stem and some curly cues for the vines. Then when you make a pumpkin that is, you want a little squatty fat pumpkin, then you just make your hot dog a little bit smaller and make these a little bit bigger. And you can put those in the back. Add your stem and some curly cues. Then you can color those in with colored pencils using different colors of brown and orange or even yellow. And then for the turkey, I just looked at the picture that's in the slideshow, so you can go back to that if you want. And I drew the circle for the turkey's head, a little circular body. Couple eyes. I have a little beak and the wattle. Then he's got a little hat. And for the hat, I just made an oval with my pencil, completely filled that in. And then I came back and did the top and I erased out of the middle section. So I don't want to do that with my marker. But that was how I created this little hat shape. Then you can go in and put, you can put the strap on it, put a little buckle, however you want to decorate it. Give him a couple of little chicken feet. Then for this part, there's probably a better way to do this, but this is how I did it. I just came up here and started creating fan all the way around the turkey. I did a fan shape. And then I took just a scrap piece of paper and I drew the lines into the turkey from the outer edge. And then each place there was an indentation, I just came in. And I didn't measure, if you wanted it to be exact, here you can see I have a real wide feather. Over here, they're real narrow. I didn't really care about that, but I will color down so far with probably, a dark brown, and then come in and do another color and then finish off with a light brown. So maybe I put some orange in here and create the look of the turkey feathers. Then I don't want to color it with marker or crayon. I want to be able to write on it with pen. So that's where I'm going to come in here and I'm going to write this week. I'm going to send a note to Vivanna, who I haven't seen in years, and tell her just, how much I appreciate all of the help she gave me back in the days when we worked together at Betsy Lane, and how I think of her fondly. And I'm gonna send her a Bible verse, one of those Bible verses that I shared with you.